Good job today, man. It's one at a time, and we'll get the job done. Y'all know what to say. On three. 1, 2, 3.
And the home of the Jets.
Mr. Jet Central, day 2 of the tampering period. How you doing, man?
Hey, man, I'm doing pretty good. Obviously, the Jets got a new quarterback, Justin Fields. I'm pumped about it.
So now the question is, how much have you slept the last 2 days? Are you like all around the clock checking X and checking things, see what's going on, or do you sleep at all?
Dude, so like last night, last night honestly was tough. I went to bed at like 1:32. Well, so I filmed an entire mock draft because I was just like bored at night. I'm like, you know what? Like, let me just do this mock draft real quick. And then, bro, this microphone, sometimes it will record the entire video like really high pitched, and I don't know because I don't like listen back like as I'm recording. I'm not like hitting pause, halfway through, the video. And so I did this 40-minute video on this big mock draft, like a post free agency mock, and I went to go edit it this morning, and it was high pitched. I'm like, right in the trash, man. Like, not gonna do it. But no, this morning I was up pretty early. I love sleeping. I need to do more of it though, for sure.
Yeah, it's a crazy time, man. 'Cause you never know what to expect. Where it's just like, it could be midnight, a move breaks out. The start of free agency, something happens. Like, you never know what can happen. There's no timeline for it, and you got to be prepared. And you crank out content endlessly, man. Like, I know when something happens, I get a notification from you. I'm like, now who got signed? I'm like, you're like rapid fire with your videos, man. It's impressive.
Thanks, dude. Yeah, it's kind of something that I always like wanted when I was younger. So like, being from Florida, like there was no one that talked Jets football, and I wasn't really like a big radio guy. Literally the only time I ever heard anyone ever talk about the Jets was like making fun of them on TV.
Yep.
Or like skipping by their highlights or talking about the butt fumbles, just like, lame stuff. So I'm like, you know what? There's I don't care how big the move is. It's just fun to kind of dive in and talk about like, okay, what are the Jets getting here? You never know who's going to be that, diamond in the rough type of addition. So, I really get amped up with whether it's a free agent pickup, a trade, draft pick, whatever.
Yeah, so we'll go into all the moves, but let's start with our division rivals, as the Jets made some moves, but there are some big moves that were made within a division, and I got to get your take on it because this is like breaking news where it's like, I need to know, what is Mr. Jets Central think about Zach Wilson going to the Miami Dolphins? What do you think about that, man?
I shot you a text about it earlier. You don't remember? No. So it's interesting, right? Because you think Miami, right? The first thing you think of is like Tua, his health.
Yep.
He always misses games. There's always something kind of going on. So I seriously would not be surprised if Zach Wilson actually starts a handful of games for the Dolphins this upcoming season. And like that offensive system, like those offensive coaches, the McVays, the Shanahans, Matt LaFleur or Mike LaFleur, obviously kind of coming from the same tree, Mike McDaniel, Zach Wilson does fit that offense. So I'm personally not super, super surprised that he wound up with Miami here. But yeah, I don't think he's going to push to day one or anything like that. But I do think, hey, by the end of the season, we could see Zach out there for a game or two.
Yeah, I mean, Tua unfortunately gets hurt all the time. But to me, it was a weird sign because based on Tua's availability, Zach's going to play at some point. And to me, it's like it's a timing offense, throwing guys open. That's not really his skill set. It's just like, if I'm the Dolphins, you're kind of like in a win now year where the expectation is they've got to make the playoffs now, man. Like they've been on the brink now where people like McDaniel's kind of being like, your team's always falling apart. You're disappointing. You can't have another disappointing season. Are you going to put your season on the line with Zach Wilson? Like, I'm not. I'd rather have Jacoby Brissett or all these other guys before Zach Wilson, unless it was a money thing. I think he only got $6 million, but to me, I don't hate Zach, dude. Not by no means. But I'm saying, like, what they're looking for and what they want, I don't see him as being. It just didn't make any sense to me, to be honest with you.
So we got some breaking news here. Ravens, D-Hop, 1-year deal.
Not surprised.
Yeah, well, I will say this, man, with Zach, say what you want about him. Obviously didn't work out, lost a bunch of games. There were issues there, but he still has talent. He still has arm strength, still has mobility,
Still
and
proven.
a lot of
No, but
yeah,
I'm
a
just
lot
saying,
of
but no, you know what's my point though? Like you want like a legitimate backup that can win you games. Like step in, you're not worried about it. With him, you don't know what to get from. You're not really sure what you're getting out of him.
well, I agree with you, but I do feel like Miami's kind of gone down that route over and over again. Who was it? Snoop Huntley, Teddy Bridgewater, Skylar Thompson. It's just kind of all you feel like they're all like I feel like whenever a backup quarterback plays, it's 13 points, 10 or 13 points. That's what the Dolphins are scoring, and that's going to be it. So I don't know. This kind of feels like a Zag type of move from Mike McDaniel. What? We're not going to go with the safe route. We're just going to swing for the fences with a former, top 2 pick. And, I know a lot of people hate on that draft pick, and obviously it didn't work out with the Jets, but you got to think that the reality, like, if let's just say, right, Jets took Justin Fields, spot number 2. Jets took Trey Lance. Zach Wilson would have been the 3rd pick in that draft, right after New York, at spot number 3 with the Niners. All those reports coming out that Arthur Smith and the Falcons loved him, they would have taken him at spot number 4. So I don't know. I think, and also too, you listen to kind of the rumblings around Denver. Supposedly, the Broncos coaching staff loves Zach.
They wanted him back. Apparently, they said.
Yeah. So I don't know. We'll see how it plays out. I don't think he's gonna really like move the needle all that much, but it wouldn't surprise me if he cracks the lineup because of an injury or anything, and gets in there and shows some stuff.
So I was just busting your chops with that one. Ashton Davis also went there. Then you had Morgan Moses going to the Patriots, which was disappointing because we liked him, especially the Jets have a need at right tackle. A 3-year contract was a little bit surprising based on his age and the wear and tear in his body. Did you like the contract he got there? Would you have given him that same contract with the Jets? Or were you thinking like maybe a 1-year deal for him to keep him here?
It's tough, man. I mean, I honestly was not expecting that the length of the deal. Like, I'm fine giving Morgan Moses like a decent amount of cash. I think he deserves it, right, for what he does in the locker room. He's an Iron Man. He's tough. He plays through injury. Like, you feel like he's a guy that's willing to put his body on the line to go out and make it happen, go out and perform. But you kind of feel like, okay, Morgan Moses just continues to crank out good year after good year. And you're kind of wondering, as a fan, like, when is that decline really gonna,
100%.
take place? So I was honestly surprised. What was it? A 3-year contract, right, from New England?
Yep.
But then again, you can push back and say, A, the New England Patriots are desperate for offensive line help. And then B, they have to use some of that money, like $120 million in cap space. Like, if you look at Morgan Moses as a team scheme and culture fit, just give him whatever he wants. Like, he could have signed for X amount, and New England, wouldn't even be like a second thought. Like, that's just how much cap space that team had. So I am a little bit surprised though with the length.
Yeah, me too. So now getting to the Jets, which is our favorite team, obviously. The first move they made was keeping Jamie Sherwood, which to me was a bit of a surprise because you saw the linebacker market kind of start to skyrocket. And I'm like, all right, they didn't get him done before, you start to panic, like the market's going to be high. Are the Jets going to keep one of their own? Do they want to go a different direction? How much they value him? Was the team MVP voted that way? So I'm like, what kind of, it's kind of like a give and take situation. And they come out and they keep him. And I think, to me personally, I think it's a great move. It's a great message to the locker room. Your young leader's staying here. You paid one of your own. Also, it's like he's an impact player. Got a lot of speed. He got a lot of thump. He's respected. He's learned from C.J. Mosley for the last, 2-3 years. So I was really surprised it happened, but I'm also glad it happened. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, well, first and foremost, it takes a need off the table. We don't have to enter the draft saying like, okay, what are we going to do at linebacker? It's not a position that can be swept under the rug. And, for all the points that you just made, homegrown talent, late round pick, right? It was one of Joe Douglas's actual, steals from the NFL draft. So we do have to give him credit there, but he's developed. One thing I really like about Sherwood is the fact that you kind of felt like when the more responsibility the Jets gave him, the better he looked, as opposed to, almost like a Jeremy Ruckert, where it's like he was involved, I would say, the most this season out of his NFL career, but it looked like he was going backwards. Like we were seeing I felt like a drop a week.
Yep.
And you never really want to be, going that way, right? You want to be progressing forward. And Jamie Sherwood, I mean, he was progressing forward, like tackling, like, I mean, you mentioned it, right? Team MVP. Like to me, it was really important to have him back. I honestly didn't think that the Jets were going to bring him back because he didn't, have that type of production with Aaron Glenn, with Steve Wilkes. It's not like Muji was a part of it. It's not like he drafted him. But I am happy that the Jets just got it done. They got it done early. They weren't nickeling, trying to, penny pinch at all. They're just like, hey, this is what the market is. This is what we think you're worth. Here you go. Boom. It's done and over with. There's no sort of, weirdness, right? Because you feel like a lot of these ex-Jet players that whatever we drafted or we signed and they kind of emerged with us, there's like bad blood when they leave, like JFM to a certain degree,
100%,
like how they were treated. And Sherwood, boom, he gets a deal like that.
It's a young building block for your defense now. You have him, you have Sauce, you have Quinnen, you have all these nice Will McDonald, Jermaine Johnson is great. Now, how do you handle Quincy Williams? Because to me, at this point, based on his play over the last couple of years, he's underpaid. Last year of his contract. Do you try to work something out there? Because I'm assuming CJ Mosley is going to be gone. Is that a fair assumption? I mean, you think he's going to be gone. So how do you handle Quincy? Do you think he holds out? Like, is there going to be any kind of contract issue there?
Personally, I don't think so. Quincy doesn't really strike me as the type of guy to, cause a big circus, cause a big fuss. The Jets did give him that 3-year deal, which I was super, super pumped about initially, with JD. I don't see him coming in, first year coaching staff and everything like that, trying to like ruffle feathers, like, oh, I want this amount, or I need, 3-4 more years, tacked onto my current contract. But ideally, I would want to re-sign him. I think he's going to be a good fit with the Glenn defense. Someone who's just super aggressive, someone who could, come up and stop the run. But I don't necessarily think that that's, on the forefront of Darren Muji's mind. You know what I mean?
So we go from keeping one of your own to getting the quarterback. And to me, this was fascinating because you look at all the guys that are available. We talked about it for months at this point. Who's going to be the next quarterback? Who's the best available in terms of like, do you want a retread? Do you want a Band-Aid? Do you want a bridge? Do you want a stopgap? And I think we both like Justin Fields for a variety of reasons. And they get it done. And I was excited, man. I'm like, there's no perfect candidate out there. There's no great quarterback that's plug and play. We're set for the next 10 years. There is some risk. There's also a lot of potential. I think the contract was reasonable. It doesn't inhibit anything. And you could also still draft a quarterback too. It doesn't really hold you back from anything. It gives you maybe a chance to win more games to compete, but if it doesn't work out, you got Tyrod. You can still draft a kid. I like it, man. I like his arm. I like his mobility. You know what the offense is going to be now. Run the ball. Give him some chance to make plays with his legs, with his arm. You can kind of figure a lot of things out now. And I'm excited about it. Like, I know people are, oh, he sucks. He's this, he's that. I think every year he's gotten a little bit better. Now he needs stability. He needs playmakers around him, which the Jets still have to add that, quality coaching, and see what he can do. Let his talent shine. And the Jets committed to him. Pittsburgh wasn't willing to do that. They did want him back, but they didn't get him. I'm excited, man. I like the move. I think of all the guys available that would actually want to come here, I liked him the most, to be honest with you.
Yeah, man. I mean, like, you're looking at the market, all these different quarterbacks, Brissett, Wentz, Mariota, Winston, all these different guys. Throw Aaron Rodgers, throw Russell Wilson into the mix as well. You can argue Sam Darnold and Justin Fields are the top 2 quarterbacks in the entire market. Yep. When you're talking about overall potential, like, of course, what they are today, but also potential, like what, can this player be in time? Yep. And I think you hit the nail right on the head, right? With consistency, it kind of feels like an organization just with what happened over in Chicago, just kind of a messy exit, working with the 2 different coaching staffs, Matt Nagy first up, and then, of course, with Eberflus. And then you have the benching in Pittsburgh. He's playing well. It rubbed fans the wrong way. It rubbed players the wrong way. Yep. He was playing good ball. Obviously, it pissed Fields off too. It kind of just feels like an organization needs to just wrap their arms around Fields and just say, hey, man, you're the guy. We're not, going to hand out a 5-year deal. We're not calling you Josh Allen or Lamar or Joe Burrow or anything. Like, I think no one is viewing Justin Fields as a top 10 quarterback, but what they are viewing Fields as is a 25, 26-year-old guy with crazy mobility, one of the best rushing quarterbacks in football, good arm strength, former high-end pick, someone who's been just raved about. Like, people talk super, super highly of him as a leader in the locker room, which I think is huge.
Yep.
The perception with the Jets kind of goes from like old, selfish finger pointing with like the Roger, like just everything last season, to like young, hungry, and ready to turn the tables on the rest of the league. That's kind of how I'm viewing it.
No, 100%. And he's young with a lot of untapped potential in my eyes. And it's like you're bringing an explosive nature to this offense that you can maximize Breece Hall, Braylon Allen. There's a lot of different things you can do. You could be a lot of mismatches with the opposing defense. Like, you got to, it's just, to me, it's interesting. It's something different. And it's better than what else is out there. Like, if we're sitting here tonight talking about Marcus Mariota and Tyrod Taylor, I'd be like, well, this is like, we're going to be dragging out just cliches and all kinds of nonsense because we're not going to be excited about it. I think you never know what you can get. And the one thing we kept talking about last night, especially, was like, everybody always lamented, oh, well, Sam Darnold just need time and Geno Smith just needed time. Maybe Justin Fields just needed time, because you saw glimpses last year in Pittsburgh. You not even being like a homer fanboy on the other stuff, almost cursed, but not being like that. It's just, you saw really good things out of him. He's playing, completion percentage, running the ball, like all that. It's like, all right. And now you look at Tanner Engstrand and Scott Turner, who tend to be creative and about maximizing your potential and your resources and putting guys in the best chance to succeed. Then why not him? It's worth a shot, dude. And it's a 2-year deal. It's not 5 years, $100 million. So if it doesn't work out, okay, so what? Who cares? But I think it kind of also goes against the Jets are punting on the season. I think with Justin Fields, as long as they complete, obviously add more pieces, they can compete this year. What does that mean? They're not going to win 3 games. They can win 7. I think they're going to be in a lot more games. People realize they can be competitive as long as they're well coached. It's going to be interesting, man.
Yeah, it's kind of funny because it's like you have, guys selected up at the top of the draft, and they kind of ruin it for everyone, right? Herbert played early, Stroud played early, Jaden Daniels played early, right? We're seeing what Bo Nix, is doing for Denver. And so like you have these quarterbacks come out, they're top 10, top 15 picks, and they just look like the freaking man. And so it kind of creates the perception, like in the media, and not every single fan kind of feels like this, but there is the perception of like, okay, well, why isn't my first round quarterback looking like Herbert? Why isn't my first round quarterback looking like Jaden Daniels or Stroud? Right? Why isn't he throwing for 4,100 passing yards, per season?
Yep.
But these guys are. But I think the reality is there's a different kind of roadmap for every quarterback.
Yep.
The time it takes to develop is different for a lot of different guys. And I think that's why you see, teams give up early on. I mean, bro, look at Bryce Young.
Yeah.
That looked like just a complete mess.
Sure did.
Yeah, Jared Goff was another one. Aaron Glenn was actually a part of kind of the rejuvenation of Jared Goff in Detroit. He looked horrible with the LA Rams year 1. And then, of course, with Sean McVay coming in, they kind of, re-sparked him, and then he was cast aside after they felt like his ceiling was tapped out. And all of a sudden we're seeing Goff at a brand new level. The list goes on. Sam Darnold, like you mentioned, Geno Smith, like you mentioned. I don't think really Baker's like a great example, because I never really like with Baker, you always kind of felt like, at least for me, like I'm watching Baker and I never really felt like, man, this guy needs a lot of work. This guy can't play.
I agree. I completely agree.
Yeah. But I guess, to be fair, you can make the same argument with Zach Wilson too.
Yeah, and also it's also the situation that you're in, the coaching staff, the playmakers. I mean, we've seen firsthand how to ruin young quarterbacks. We've seen it for years. All the wrong things to do. But if you get in the right situation with the right chemistry, right organization, things can be different, and your timeline can be different based on how you handle it too. So, quick question: how is Fields better than Daniel Jones? Look at their stats side by side. Jones even has a better rushing success rate and won in a away playoff game. Daniel Jones is always hurt. You got to run that down. I mean, you can go.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna say they have like the same. Well, stats are just one, one angle to compare players with. I think a big part of it is supporting cast. A big part of it is coaching staff. A big part of it is the offense that they're playing in. Is it built around the player? Is it not built around the player? Are they set up to fail? Daniel Jones had just opportunity after opportunity after opportunity constantly being given just chance after chance after chance with everything, kind of tailored towards Daniel Jones, right? Like, we're going to go out and get the offensive minded coach and Brian Dable. We're going just everything, right? With Fields, it was like first round pick and boom, Matt Nagy's out. And there was like a rift between Fields and Nagy to begin with.
Yeah.
And then you get Eberflus, and what's Eberflus doing now? He was just fired. So, clearly he wasn't the option. Luke Getsy, was Fields even a fit in that offense to begin with, right? Coming over from Green Bay? Answer's no. And again, it just kind of speaks to the overall development plans, right? Maybe it takes Fields an extra year or two to get to ascend to another level, if that makes sense. So, I don't think Fields is a finished product. I don't think we've seen the best of him.
Nope.
I don't think anybody is saying like, oh my God, we just got a top 5 quarterback or anything like that. Of course, we're all fans. We're all pumped up. We're all like trying to view this optimistically, because could Fields flame out?
Yep.
Sure. Could, by week 8, could we be saying put Tyrod in? Yeah, that's 100% realistic to say. But Fields gives you an upside over Mariota, over Carson Wentz.
Yep.
These guys, the majority of the free agent quarterbacks, Brissett, all these different guys, we know who they are. Flacco, we know who they are. They're not going to turn into a franchise quarterback, right? Andy Dalton, they're not going to do it. But Fields potentially can. There's a chance there, right?
Yep.
And that's kind of what gets you excited. And that's ultimate. I mean, you brought up Daniel Jones. I don't think anyone's hating on Daniel Jones either. I think he went to Indy because he has a chance to go out there and potentially win the job over Anthony Richardson. So
yeah, but he's also,
for both players.
Yeah, I mean, Daniel Jones is great athlete, runs around a lot, gets hurt a lot, makes a lot of bad throws, makes a lot of bad decisions. I don't know, like they're not. I mean, so rewind the 2021 draft, we take Fields instead of Zach at 2. Predict how that plays out. I mean, that it's I liked Fields. I didn't mind Fields in the draft either. Like, I didn't hate him. I liked him coming out of college. We all got enamored with Zach's arm talent and everything else like that. But then you had the coaching staff around Zach wasn't all that great. The way they handled Zach was terribly. You don't know how they would, it's just there's so many variables in that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I think, I think naturally Zach was a better fit for what Mike LaFleur wanted to do compared to Justin Fields, because you're looking at the teams that Justin Fields has been a part of, right? Again, like Matt Nagy, Eberflus, Arthur Smith. The offenses aren't the West Coast Kyle Shanahan, type of system. And I don't necessarily think Fields would fit that molds, where it's just like, boom, snap the ball, 3-step balls out. You're throwing to your open space, and it's so much like timing and like rhythmic passing elements in those types of offenses. With Zach, that was the fit coming out of high school, or not high school. Sorry, coming out of college, coming out of BYU. That was like the big draw, right? I mean, how many times did Steve Young talk about that?
Yep.
Get him in the offense with Kyle Shanahan. He could work wonders with Zach because all of the physical tools and the physical skill set, really. But yeah, I mean, going back to it, I think I just don't really feel like the Jets did a good job with surrounding Zach or putting Zach in a position to have success. And I'm not making excuses for him, because Zach was given a lot, lots of opportunities, tons of starts under his belt and whatnot. But going back, could the Jets have handled that situation much, much better? Yeah, like added veteran coaching staffs, added a veteran backup quarterback.
Yep.
Really trying to invest in the offensive line earlier, or in that same offseason, because the offensive line that was another big issue for Zach too, was just like constantly bailing out of the pocket early. To be honest, I don't really feel like Fields would have survived the same situation with New York. But I don't know, the Jets just kind of have always done that with young quarterbacks. Like, and it stems across different regimes, where it's like they draft one, whether it's Sanchez or Geno or Sam Darnold or Zach. It's like, you're our savior. Like, can you please just will Andrew Luck us to wins? Because we're like incapable of doing it. Like, you need to go out and be like the Superman type of guy. We're not going to really support you, as opposed to some of these quarterbacks that come out like a Bo Nix, and it's like, okay, this is a picture perfect fit for the offense. We're going to make an effort to, surround Bo Nix with talent, and we're going to, really from an offensive coaching staff perspective with Sean Payton, like really, really invest. Like, okay, if we're going to be taking Bo Nix, we're going to give him the starting nod. Like he's got to be ready. If he's not ready, we're not going to just throw him out there and just say, please win us games.
So then to touch on that, it's you have Justin Fields. You look at all the playmakers around Justin Fields. You're like, all right, you got Braylon Allen, you got Breece Hall, you got Isaiah Davis, you got Garrett Wilson, and then you have Malachi Corley. So to me, how do you don't want to be in the same position where you don't have playmakers around them? How do you address the wide receiver position where, as of now, Allen Lazard's still on this team, which is surprising to me? Are they keeping him? Are they restructuring him? Why is he here? But you look at all the guys that have gone to free agency. Slayton's gone. Josh Palmer's gone. A lot of big names are still available, but you don't see like Brandon Cooks, Stephon Diggs, guys like that aren't going to come here. Tim Patrick, everybody assumes, but like, how do you address the wide receiver group? Is it a concern for you? You say, oh, just go draft somebody. Like, you need more than, like, I don't want to be one Garrett Wilson injury away from a panic button. Assuming the Jets are going to run the ball a lot, but you need playmakers. Where do you find wide receiver help?
For sure, man. For sure. It's a big issue. To not sugarcoat it, right? There's a lot of people, suggesting the DK Metcalf situation. Here's the deal, though, with the Jets trading for a wide receiver. A, we got to give up something. B, we're probably going to have to pay that receiver because he wants out for a reason. Mm-hmm. And is that really the best situation or best, player to be taking on when we haven't yet given Garrett Wilson a contract extension? Yep. It kind of reminds me of the Jets, the whole like Bryce Huff, Hassan Reddick, like we're not going to go down that path again, where it's like we're trading for a player who wants a new deal, and it's like, Muji's like, nope, you got to play on your 1-year deal, and exactly. That's going to be it. So that's it, because another name that I feel like I've seen a lot too is Chris Olave, right? Just bring the Ohio State guys back together. Yep. And Chris Olave is one of my favorite players in football, just route running so smooth. He's obviously missed a lot of time this past season, but that's another guy where it's like, okay, well, if you want to bring him in, great. That's a huge, huge boost for the offense. I'd be pumped if the Jets make it happen. But we're now going to have to invest big money into Garrett Wilson and probably a decent amount of money to Olave here. So that's the question, right? Do the Jets want to go from rookie deal money, Garrett Wilson, rookie deal money with Corley to, in 2026, have Garrett Wilson at 29 mil, 30 mil, and Chris Olave at 27 mil a season? Like, you went from essentially just a handful of million, a couple $1 million to now upwards of 40, in the upper 40s or even 50s. So that's kind of like the big question. But granted, two really good wide receivers there. So, I mean, I'm with you. The Jets have got to figure it out. I don't really like, I'm looking at the free agent market. I don't really feel like there's like, that's the wide receiver 2 of the future. Yep. I think you could probably round out the roster, but who knows, right? We got the NFL draft. Ted McMillan, I think he's a good player. I know a lot of people are kind of out, but I don't know. I have my
okay. So on why. So then, if you have the wide receivers, not really any answers right now in free agency. I don't think you're going to get maybe some Band-Aid, some stock. Like, I like Rondale Moore just because he's got a ton of talent. He's injury prone, unfortunately, but he's young, inexpensive. But then if you look at the tight end group where Jawan Johnson went back to the Saints today, Tyler Conklin, as of, I haven't looked really lately, but Tyler Conklin's still available. The tight end group is kind of scarce too. Do you try to bring Conklin back? Do you consider a trade for a Dallas Goedert, a Michael Mayer? Like, how do you handle tight end? Or do you say, you know what, Tyler Warren, go in the draft, number 7, that's our guy, can catch, can block, can dominate. Let's go that route. Like, how do you handle time? Because you need playmakers, dude. It's got it. Like, everybody's like, well, just go draft them. All right, well, we don't have 45 draft picks. We have a lot of holes, and you need, like, for me, it's like, I want legit game-breaking talent. I don't think you can afford a project at pick 7. It's got to be this guy that's going to contribute week 1, right? It's got to be an instant contributor to me, especially on offense. So how do you handle that?
It's interesting, man, because it really just comes down to, like, how do I handle what? The
tight end group.
Adding the tight end, or specifically with Conklin?
Both.
With Conklin, I mean, I don't really know how. I think with Conklin, I would probably just offer a 1-year deal. I don't think he's the long-term answer at the tight end position. I like Conklin. It would fill a need if we bring him back, but next season, I think we're going to be right in the same exact boat. And I do feel like both Tyler Warren and Loveland are upgrades over Tyler Conklin in a big way today.
Mm-hmm.
Like if both of them are on the roster, Warren and Loveland are going to be starting over Conklin. That's how good these guys are. So from that point, if you don't bring a guy like Conklin back, it really comes down to, okay, well, how are you viewing this draft? Because the wide receivers in this class are not really it's not the deepest.
No.
In other words, so you got guys like Matt Golden and again Ted McMillan, Travis Hunter, obviously, but he's not going to be there at 7. A couple other decent wide receivers, but none, in my opinion, that'll really just step into the Jets depth chart and just say, I'm the guy to build around opposite of Garrett Wilson. I will take actual pressure off of the playmakers. Feed me the football. I don't really see that guy outside of maybe like the top 3-4 guys in the draft. So you're taking that knowledge and you're saying, okay, well, can we potentially just scoop one up at spot number 7 and just plug a hole? Just simple as that, like a Ted McMillan at 7, even though it'd be considered like maybe a bit of a reach, and then double dip in round 2 and attack tight end. So you're double dipping with pass catchers because the tight end class is really, really deep. Or do you say at 7, let's just take the best available player, the best available pass catcher relative to, the offensive structure. Tyler Warren would check that box because he, of course, best tight end in the draft, but also helps out in the running game. He'd be a, instant upgrade. And these top tight ends don't really hit the market. Top receivers hit the market every single season.
So, but if you keep that mindset, and I agree with you, like this is where I get torn because I'm like playmakers. All I keep saying is playmakers in my head. So if you say at 7, Tyler Warren, but as of right today, the Jets will have a right tackle. You can make a case the best right tackle could be sitting there available for you at 7, and then you have your offensive line for the next how many years, which is quite valuable to have. Like, what's more important, getting that tight end that could be, game-breaking talent, or solidifying your offensive line? Like, what's your value chart there? Like, who would you put more value on?
Well, it really depends. I feel like right now, so like it's similar to the argument that we had last season, right? Bowers or O-line. And
true.
Last season, dude, I felt like it was the right move to go O-line because I'm taking a franchise left tackle over a franchise tight end every day of the week. And at that point in time, we had questions, right? We had questions about AVT's health. We didn't have a left tackle on the roster. Yes, we had Tyron Smith coming in, but yes, people were excited about it, but that wasn't, a 4-year plan. That was just like a 1-year incentive-based contract, and it is what it is. Just go out and, select the top tier left tackle that falls to you outside of the top 10 because we traded back 1 spot with the Vikings. Yep. So if you're for context, Olu, Alt, Latham, they're all better prospects, like from just like a draft grade perspective, than all of the offensive linemen in this upcoming class, the Will Campbells and whatnot. So granted, Bowers was freaking good too. So that was like the big question. But the positive kind of twist was the Jets can't really go wrong. We're either going to get a franchise left tackle or franchise tight end. Which position is more important? Which is the maybe bigger need? Because at that point in time, Conklin was on the roster. Ruckert still had a little bit a little bit of a mystery. But now with more answers out on the table, less offensive line holes, and clearly no more Conklin, assuming he's not brought back, I would say tight end is probably the bigger need compared to right tackle. But if the Jets want to go with Membu or a right tackle at 7, I don't think anyone's going to argue that and say like, what the hell are you doing? This is the wrong move.
No, I agree. Like
it's filling a need either way.
No, we're going to argue like crazy about that. And last year, like you look at having Olu this year is a huge benefit because the tackle market wasn't great. You don't have to overpay. It's already there. He's played a year. I like it. But now I'm like, all right, now you're getting a little barren at positions of need. So once draft time comes, some interesting debates. So going down the list here. So the next signing they made was a kind of a head scratcher to me because I'm looking at needs on the team. I was thinking safeties, defensive tackle, tight end, wide receiver. Lo and behold, they come out and they get Brandon Stevens, 3 years, $36 million. I think it was about $23 million guaranteed, 27 years old, coming off a rough year. Potential, a lot of potential. Like the rub is he's always in the right place. He's always there to make the play, just doesn't make the play. So interesting. You can look at it where he's got potential, and you think that Aaron Glenn can maximize it, maximize his skill set along with Steve Wilkes. Aaron Glenn being a former corner could probably help technique, maybe fix things that he likes, things that he sees. He can hit, he's a big hitter, but you can also say it could be a reach for the money they have and really not a position of need. Maybe that money could have went somewhere else. Like, how did you take that signing? Because I wasn't completely sold on this one.
Yeah, it caught me off guard. It caught me off guard because I was thinking, okay, you know what? We still have all these like top tier free agents on the market, or top tier safety free agents on the market outside of Trevon Merrick. You can go get a Justin Reed. You could go get a Javon Holland or someone like that. Pay them a decent sized deal. And that player, right, that roaming type of free save, maybe not so much Justin Reed, but like, let's just use Holland, for example, right? You give him the money, obviously huge upgrade on the back end of the defense. That's great. But that player also benefits the corner too. Yeah. Stiggers, right? That's a guy who I like. Do I like him enough to give him the starting corner job right out of the gate? No, probably not. But he's still, someone on the roster where I'm like, hey, I'm not going to write him off. Like, who knows how he's going to look? But the Jets went kind of the opposite route, which was pay the, a decent amount to the corner and pay, I don't want to say cheap out at safety because I love Andre Cisco and I love that move. I thought he was going to get scooped up by like the Bills,
right?
Or, a team that's like actually like really trying to push for a Super Bowl this season, like a team that needs a safety but doesn't have a lot of cap space. And I felt like the Hollands and the Merricks were going to go to the teams that need safeties but had a lot of cap space, kind of like Carolina, right? Which is what we saw. So again, Cisco 1 year, $10 million. And now the plan is, okay, we're going to put Stevens at corner too. I don't see Darren Muji, Aaron Glenn, Steve Wilkes saying, you know what, we're going to just bring this guy in. Because I've seen a lot of people point to the stats from last year.
Yep.
Like, what are we doing? This is way too much. Ravens fans are, whatever, celebrating and stuff. Like, does this make any sort of sense at all for the Jets to invest that type of money with 3 years attached to this contract to a player that they're like, we don't know how he's going to fit. We don't really like him. That makes zero sense. You got to imagine that Muji, Steve Wilkes, and Aaron Glenn are like, hey, you know what? Let's go out and handpick this player because we feel like we can work with him, or we feel like he has potential, or we feel like we can maybe coach up his weaknesses. Like we see something there. Yep. They're not, I really don't believe, this better not be the case. I don't believe that they're going to say, okay, let's just hand out a 3-year deal to a wild card question mark when this money could be allocated towards other positions of need because this Jets team has a lot of needs.
Yeah. And that's that's like the player, like I'll give the faith to Aaron Glenn saying former corner, defensive guru. He can maybe work with him. To me, it's the allocation of the money where I'd rather sign 2 safeties that are legit, sign a defensive tackle. Like a lot of other positions of need to me are more pressing than corner 2, assuming that we're going to have a very good pass rush with Will McDonald and Jermaine Johnson. Like you're assuming a lot of things, good pass rush, good scheme, all this stuff where you can at times hide a corner that's not top level, that's maybe a little bit cheaper, put that money at the safety position, at defensive tackle, somewhere else. So it's just more my allocation of how much they spent and where it was kind of bothered me. Then you look at the player, you're like, all right, some guy can suck. He had a bad year last year, could be good this year. Who knows how they're going to use him. And he's got a lot of versatility, big hitter. So it was just an interesting one that caught me off guard. I'm like, all right, didn't see that one coming, especially at that position. Because like the whole thing is like teams aren't going to throw at Sauce. They're going to test him out. Like, all right, we know who Sauce is. Even coming off a year that he had last year, he's still a top corner in the NFL. Let's try this kid out first. And we have success. We're going to keep attacking him until he can stop somebody. So it's going to be really interesting to see how the Jets handle that in terms of his scheme and in terms of how they handle him in general.
Right, dude. Which is kind of like what makes you think like, this conversation that we're having has already been talked about by Aaron Glenn, by Steve Wilkes. Like, they know exactly how this defense is going to be attacked.
Yep.
And and because of that, they still went through with the signing on it would be one thing if it was a 1 year, $5 million contract, 1 year, $8 million. It's 3 years, upwards of $30 million, higher than that much. That's a commitment right there.
Yeah.
And I just don't see year one of a regime. And again, the Jets aren't in like a Dayball situation. There's no like overpay these guys. We need players. No one wants to come here. It's like they did not have to do this signing, but they did it anyway. So that in and of itself gives me hope.
So now you talked about Cisco earlier, and I'll be honest with it. They announced him last night while we were streaming, and he's not a guy I was familiar with. He wasn't on my radar at all. I was like, all right, 1 year, at least $10 million. I'm like, all right. So you do the research, and the skill set he has, this defense has been desperately lacking. Ball hawk, rangy, big hitter. My only criticism of the move is I wish it was more than a 1 year deal. Because if you have that kind of playmaker on this team, give him a 2 year deal. Because if you hit big this year, you have him next year, and then you can lock him up for a long period of time. 1 year deal, it could be like all right, he hit it big. He's a great playmaker for us. Now he wants $15 million a year, and he's gonna be a free agent. Like, that's the only thing where it's like I like situations like this where it's like there's low risk, high reward kind of players. Well, with a price tag on him to pay him, get a 2 year deal locked up. What do you think about that?
I agree with you. I think maybe the only reason why, and also too, something to make a note of, you don't know what like the players' demands are. The Jets could have offered him a 3, and he's like, you know what? I got benched last season in Jacksonville. I know I'm a good player because of the 3 seasons before, the 3 years of Cisco playing that kind of rangy safety position. Like, he was grabbing interceptions. He looked like a young player to build around. I think today he's only 24 years old. This guy can clearly play. Maybe the Jets did offer him a 3 year deal or a 2 year deal.
Yeah.
And Cisco is just like, yo, I like you guys. I want to, join up here. I will sign a contract, but I think I know him a lot better than this. So I'm not going to sign on to a contract while the Jets could be trying to buy low on me.
Yeah.
Let me just kind of show what I'm worth in a defense that I feel like, I can perform well in. That's just my guess. Is a complete assumption. Maybe the Jets just did only offer the 1 year and he signed it anyway. But you got to imagine, because bro, this defense, look at like Kirby Joseph and Brian Branch in Detroit, like how much those guys are valued, how much those guys developed with AG and this Lions defensive staff, right? And like we're all like kind of accustomed to the Robert Saleh, like, oh, who cares about safety? Not important position. We'll just throw anyone back there. That I just don't feel like is going to be the case this season, or really with this regime. So you got to imagine if Cisco is having a good season, they're going to, pull a Jamie and Sherwood and just re-up one of their own guys.
Now, if you look at their signings so far, coming into free agency, we had no idea what Darren Muji was going to do. What is their play like a Jet? What does that actually mean? What is their prototype? The kind of guys they're looking for. Do you think after these moves, maybe on the defensive side of the ball, we kind of know what they're looking for? Is there like a mold that they're kind of establishing here? Or we got to wait a little bit longer to see if they show more of that?
Well, yeah. So I think for me, the thing that stands out is the age with all these guys.
Yeah.
Cisco's 24, Fields is 25, Stevens is 27. They're, up to this point, they haven't opted for the 33-year-old vet. I was going to say 33rd team. Or like a 34-year-old, right? It's pretty obvious that the Jets are like, hey, you know what? We have a lot of needs. We have a lot of holes. We're going to handpick guys that we like. We're going to bring back Sherwood, who's, again, a young player here. And we're going to, again, I'm just assuming here, we're going to get everyone kind of on the same timeline, moving in the right direction. I mean, I personally wouldn't mind like a Dalvin Tomlinson at D tackle on a cheap 1 year deal. Someone like that, I think there's probably some names out there that you can target, but I like how that's not going to be the bulk of the team. With Joe Douglas, it kind of felt like that was like the bulk of the team. Randall Cobb, I mean, the list just goes on. Quentin Jefferson, all these different guys, Amos. Dalvin Cook, all of these just like cheap 1-year deals. And you always kind of felt like JD would go 1 year less than he should. Or like, and in like, so for example, like I'm kind of all over the place. There's just free agency just kind of has my brain going crazy, but some GMs will overpay with the money. Some GMs will give out longer deals. Some GMs will give shorter deals, right? And with JD, he kind of always felt like, okay, he's like, this player should be getting a 3-year deal, but he's only getting a 1 or a 2. And he'll worry about replacing that player after or negotiating after the fact, after he's seen him perform with his team, which isn't inherently a bad thing. But yeah, I mean, so far so good. You know, the Jets weren't going to fill every single team need in one free agency period. And by the way, today's only day 2. Yep. What happens if we wake up tomorrow and there's like two different signings?
Well, this is where Muji's got to earn his paycheck, to be honest with you. You got to get all these mid-tier guys, all the role player guys to fill your roster up, the depth, like your swing players. That's what that's where you get the most value at. Everybody can chase the big dollars, but it's like, how do you fill out the rest of your roster? They're going to be special teams players, the backups, all that. But unfortunately, the Jets need actual contributors. And it's like everybody's saying, well, just draft them. You can only draft so many starters. So I still have some concerns. And, every time you switch on X or somebody else assigns, you're like, all right, wide receiver group still a concern, tight end group, you want defensive line help. So I'm curious to see how they handle it. And it's just, are there any guys that are on your wish list right now? I know we haven't checked, what's happened in the last hour or so, but is there anybody that's still kind of like you're hoping that you're kind of keeping your eyes out on?
So, there's a couple guys, no one that like if the Jets just call it like this, just, we have our 3 starters and we're just going to move forward like that. I'm not going to have an issue with it because I don't want Muji to overpay for guys in year 1. I don't want us to because, these contracts, unless they're 1-year deals, they impact the team moving forward into 2026 and 2027. So, maybe if you're looking ahead, 2026, maybe that free agent class is a lot better. Maybe, guys' contracts are running out in that cycle that we really want to go out and invest money into a specific guy, like a T. Higgins, for example, just throwing him out. But let me actually just quickly see the available wide receivers still on the market.
It's slim pickings, man. I know a couple
guys.
Okay. Yeah.
You want me to read off the names?
Go for it. Should I start crying now, or should I wait a couple minutes?
Yeah, just give me the thumbs up or the thumbs down.
Well, it's all, but it's also like, what's our criteria though? Because my criteria is you want him less than 30 years old, right? Because like then you're going like Tim Patrick, obviously is a guy that we all assume is going to get signed at some point. He's going to be like your 4th receiver, 5th receiver. But like, are we looking for like the young player on the rise, like untapped potential, or are you looking for a journeyman guy that we know can catch the football? Like, what would you be looking for in a situation?
Well, I think really the question is, what do you think the Jets are looking for? Me personally, I would like a younger guy, but well, and by the way, just for context, I'm going to assume that Lazard gets cut. Like, I just don't see him on the roster this season.
Yeah, I'm shocked he's still here. Like, I'm like, are they trying to restructure him? Because like the way I'm looking at it, like I see like a lot of Keenan Allen references, like, it's like what Keenan Allen, Brandon Cooks, Stephon Diggs, they're all out there, but I'm thinking they're going to want big money. Definitely. I know Cooks and Diggs definitely want big money. And do they want to come to an offense that's going to be predicated by running the football? It's not like it's going to be a high-flying offense. We're going to be airing it out. You're going to probably not going to get you're going to probably get 50, 60 catches. It's not, an easy sell. So if you're looking for criteria, I'm hoping to get a younger guy, but you can make the argument you need a proven pass catcher because you don't have anybody other than Garrett Wilson. Corley is completely unproven. Gibson, whatever. Irv Charles is hurt. So I don't know how, what we should look for.
Right. Here's an interesting name. Van Jefferson was in Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
He was in Pittsburgh last season, so he does know Justin Fields. Has that experience here, but really no one else is like jumping off the screen. And it's just the reality of the situation. We're not going to, because guys like Stephon Diggs and stuff, I don't want any part of Stephon Diggs like in this type of locker room. I don't think Aaron Glenn does either. One name that's I would say pretty interesting is like an actual, threat down the field is Tyler Lockett. But when I think about Tyler Lockett, I just don't feel like the Jets make sense for him. I think he would probably want to go to a team that's like actually like
now,
projected to finish like a top 3.
My question for you is, I actually like Tyler Lockett a lot. Great contested catch, good, just a very reliable receiver. Do you open the checkbook up a little bit to try to convince him? Like, I don't want Diggs. Diggs to me is a problem. No, thank you. Keenan Allen's interesting. Not sure he would come here, but like a guy like Lockett, do you sell him a vision? Maybe say he wants what his market, just for example, his market's $10 million a year. Do you offer him like a 12 or 13 to try to get him here to give you that legitimate, reliable passing target? Or do you say, you know what, we'll just keep going to like a lesser tier? And like, is there anybody you kind of try to spend a little money for or no?
Not with this group, dude, because I don't want to tie myself down in 2026. I mean, if it's a
1 year deal.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'd maybe be a little bit more open to it. And for context too, like if news breaks tomorrow, Jets sign, whatever, Tyler Lockett to a 1 year deal, I'm gonna be pumped up because the Jets have now identified a player that they want. But if I was a general manager, I don't know. I think D tackle is such a big need. That like the Jets have a lot of needs, but
dude,
I think the one. Go ahead.
It's got to be offense. It's got to be offense. I didn't mean to be a jerk, but it's like,
no, you're not.
We've already seen an offense with no playmakers. We've already seen it. And right now we have one receiver. That's it. We have no tight ends. I know Rucker loves Justin Fields, all this. Rucker is coming off a disappointing season where he drops a lot of passes and his blocking was suspect. Just the facts. So now it's like, all right, what are we going to do? If you want to get Tyler Warren, great. That's 2. We need more than that. So if you have I'm not saying go out and, give Diggs, 3 years, $45 million, nothing like that, but it's a concern, dude. It is, because you want to have a NFL caliber offense that can hold the defense accountable, hold them honest, where they can't just double Garrett and start taking off on people.
Yeah, but I think I just don't know if there's anyone that actually pushes the needle forward in this free agency group. I mean, yeah, you can add like bodies to the room, but outside of those top guys like Keenan Allen, Tyler Lockett, Stephon Diggs, Deontay Johnson, I think he's not going to mesh well with this, with this Jets roster. Josh Reynolds is out there, right? Obviously knows Aaron Glenn. KJ Osborne is out there, but I think he was a bit of an issue with New England, and that's why they let him go.
Yeah,
because I think he was like sick of losing or something. Like it was some. Oh, here's a name for you, Elijah Moore. Yeah, he's out there. Let's see. Yeah, I mean, there's really no one else that Tyler Boyd, DJ Chark.
How old is Tyler Boyd now? He's probably what, 31?
30.
30?
Yeah. Van Jefferson, Zacchaeus from Washington, who actually had a really solid year. David Moore from Carolina, Tyler Johnson from the Rams, Tim Patrick, like you said. Well, and so it kind of goes back to what we were, talking about earlier, which is based off of the free agent class, based off of the team need, based off of this overall draft class. Do you just go with the Ted McMillan at spot number 7? Actually, real quick before I get your thoughts on that, here's a twist that I'm curious to hear your take on it. So the rumor, right, and who knows, this could just be draft smoke. We don't know how the draft's going to play out. No one knows how the draft's going to play out. But if Shedeur Sanders starts to fall and we get to pick number 7 and there's a team that's willing to come up, would you consider moving back? Let's just say the Steelers. Would you want to move back to like 22 or wherever they're picking?
22 is far. I'm not opposed to trading back, but I'd want to be in the top 15, 14. I'm not opposed to trading back, though. I'm not. Based on the conversation we're having right now, I'm like, all right, if we can get, just saying through, if you can trade back and draft a wide receiver and tight end in the first round, okay. Right? Like, I wouldn't hate it, because I'm just concerned of how, like, I'm not with Romeo. I would not draft Sanders. I would hope to trade back.
I like Sanders, but I think with Fields' contract, like if we signed Mariota or Wentz, I would be all over drafting Shedeur Sanders. But
how How far?
Pittsburgh's at 21. Okay, cool.
How far would you trade back? I mean, I'm like, what would be your limit in terms of trading back? How far would you
I
go?
honestly really don't mind trading back uh to wherever. I think this draft class, like you'd want to stock up on those mid round, like the second and third round picks. Like it's exactly what Seattle's doing, right? They get the extra 3 from Geno, the extra 2 from DK, and I think that's calculated for this draft class specifically because it kind of feels like the draft isn't really the strongest in the first round, but when it comes to the second and third round, like you're going to be getting really, really good value there for where you're. So, for example, like you're going to be getting the same caliber of player in the bottom of round 2 that you are in the top or bottom of round 1, or
Yeah.
top of round 2, bottom of round 1. And like if you're a GM, you're like, oh, if we have an opportunity to trade back, get a future draft pick, and potentially get a similar graded out player, that could be Armand. Oh, okay, yeah. That I would do that package from
I would
Armand.
100% do that. I would 100% do that. To me, but you also want value for this year too. Like I need guys for this year. Like you want to get these young guys in the fold for your offense this year. Like I'm all about offense. I'm not gonna lie. I'm being fully transparent about it because it's just you want to have Justin Fields or whoever the quarterback is in the best chance to succeed. Like that's the whole key here. Like it's just, and then you got to figure out what's gonna happen with Garrett Wilson too. Give him a new contract. There's a lot of things. There's a lot of moving pieces here.
But if the options aren't out there,
that's the problem.
That's kind of the issue that we're in. It'd be different if T. Higgins was still on the open market. I don't feel like one name I've seen kind of pop up strangely in like trade rumors is Brandon Ayuk. I feel like he doesn't really fit, just kind of like what Glenn is trying to build. And also that we're running into the same situation that we were talking about with Olave and Metcalf, which is if you trade for a guy like this, chances are they want a big contract. And are you going to hand out a big contract without paying Garrett one? And if you pay both, now you're paying like 50. You're in like the same position that the Dolphins are with Waddle and Tyreek Hill.
So then if we're, for the most part, done with the big spending or these, just saying theory, the average spending in free agency, do the Jets then take this money and get a deal done with Sauce or Garrett Wilson now? Like if there's no more, I don't think there's any more $20 million contracts coming out in this free agency class. I think they probably spent their big money. Now it's going to be all like your average signings, your depth signings, maybe your special teams players. Do you then say, okay, let's get something done with Garrett. Let's get something done with Sauce. Use the money we have now to protect our future. Do you do that or no?
I think you could, but the money this season wouldn't change. It would just be in projecting into the future years,
right?
Because it's not like, like if we wouldn't essentially give Garrett a raise this year, like that money would kick in next year. But no, I mean you make a great point because it's like if we aren't signing any more multi-year deals with the available guys, no more money is going to be impacted or going to be taken up in 2026. So
yeah,
no,
so
it's interesting.
But it's interesting to see if they do that. And for some reason, I feel like it's going to be Sauce. I don't know why. I just get that weird feeling that he's the guy they're going to take care of first. I know that Garrett's the one that's kind of seems like he's the one more vocal, more disappointed, where there's rumored, does he want out? Does he want to be traded? Who knows? But I for some reason, I just think it's Sauce. I don't know why I think that. But if you had to choose who gets done first, who do you think it is?
Well, I mean, ideally, I want both back. Who gets done first? I think Garrett Wilson gets done first. Yeah, because I think there's pressure there with Gardner. He's already had the comments about wanting to be with the Jets for the rest of his career. He doesn't really seem to be threatening a holdout. With Garrett, he's in a good position because like this is what all wide receivers do.
Yeah,
delete the team posts off social media and just request the trade. But also like wide receiver is a massive position of need with corner now, especially with Stevens being brought in. Garrett Wilson is like he's like essentially like standing by himself in the room saying, "Hey, I'm the only one you have. I want my new deal."
Okay.
And if you don't, I'm going to hold out. And then what are you guys are going to be left with?
So what would you say as of today? Today's March 11th. What is the biggest hole in the Jets right now? Your biggest concern on the Jets in terms of the roster?
D tackle.
Yeah, that's another position.
D tackle or wide receiver. But I think D tackle is more important.
Well, there's still a few guys out there that are still like they are serviceable that can kind of plug some holes. Like to me, like free agency was very top heavy in terms of defensive players. Like the top offensive guys are all pretty much gone now, except for like Diggs and those guys. But it seems like defense, there's still plenty of like you got to think that between Steve Wilkes and Aaron Glenn, they have to have their eyes on somebody at some point. I mean, it's only day 2, but you think there's somebody they're looking at, right? Because what's his did the guy from the Lions he signed over yet? Levi, what's his? You always say his name right. I say it wrong.
Yeah, Onwuzurike. No. He's still out there.
So, is there any defensive lineman you're looking at over the next couple of days?
Maybe Dalvin Tomlinson, but that's just kind of like a stopgap type of addition. But yeah, I mean, dude, it's going to be interesting because I mean, like, what about you? Like, where do you think the biggest position of need is?
Wide receiver. I'm just so concerned, man. But like the fact that Lazard's still here is just weird to me. I'm wondering if they're looking at his like what does he make this year? What is it? What's his contract this year? Is it like what 11 million he's making? What's he making? Because is his contract worthy of keeping him as opposed to what's still available right now? Man, I don't think. Do they see something we don't see?
I think it's 9 million. I can double check though.
So if you look at what Lazard is scheduled to make this year, as opposed to what's available on the market, do they say, you know what, we see enough of him to keep him here for one more year and then move on? Could that be a possibility?
I would say yeah, maybe, but we had the report come out that they gave him permission to seek a trade. So that kind of $13 million cap hit. 13.1.
Okay, yeah. So then and they save money too if they cut him, right? They save how much?
So the dead cap, this is according to Spotrac or Spotrac. They would so the dead cap would be 6.5. Okay. So the money we would save would be those two, like roughly 6 to 7 mil.
Yeah, so there he's gone. He ain't staying. Not that price.
Okay. Yeah, but he's also under contract too for 2026.
Now this is a guy I always liked. This is true? Jason Pinnock, a 1-year deal. I liked him when he was with the Jets. I was pissed when they cut him with the Jets. He went to the Giants, played pretty well. Ugh.
Yeah, dude, that was something that like every Jet fan like called. Like I remember like, just when that news broke, like every Jet fan's just like, what are you doing? Like he's like a nice young player. Yep. He instantly gets picked up by, the other team in New York and does pretty well. So yeah, from 6 mil. Good call.
Yeah. So now what do you think happens with we have the quarterback carousel right now where the Aaron Rodgers drama, Russell Wilson still out there. Where do you think Aaron Rodgers lands? Does he go to Vikings? Does he go to Steelers? Go to Giants? Where do you think he goes?
I'm going to say the Giants.
You think so?
Say the Giants. Yeah, just I think maybe the Steelers are kind of the obvious, like they're built to win right now. It's like plug and play. But you kind of feel like with Aaron Rodgers, like he's going to want to do his own thing. He's going to want to, do his, stuff on offense that he wants to do. And he's going to like want to do things just, again, like his specific way. And the Giants are just so desperate. They are. And I feel like Rodgers can walk in there and say, you know what, I don't have to move. It's just a different commute. I can walk in and just say, nope, you get me my receivers. You guys still have cap space. Alan Lazard can come on over. Brian Dable, an offensive mind. But we can work together. But, I'm going to be doing my thing. And you guys are desperate. Whereas with the Steelers, I don't know if maybe him and Tomlin would – like, I don't think all that's like skipping mandatory minicamp and, the McAfee, like, I don't know how all that stuff would play out in Pittsburgh, but I don't know how hot is Mike Tomlin's seat. So I don't know. I feel like the Giants, the Steelers are the, the clear, I would say the better fit, but I think with Rodgers and his like personality, maybe the Giants makes more sense for him because he is thinking, okay, I can just, control. I have more control with the Giants than I would in Pittsburgh. But I mean, who knows? Realistically, I think he's probably going to wind up in Pittsburgh.
If he really wants to win, you go to the Vikings, man. In a dome, Kevin O'Connell, all those weapons. I mean, that's where you can just – and they've just really beefed up their offensive line too. Like, that's probably the safest place for him to go, right? Like, in terms like – I'm not sure what they think about J.J. McCarthy in terms of his health and how back he is and everything else. But, I mean, that's like – and I know the whole thing, Brett Favre 2.0, but who cares about that? I want to win. If you want to go out on a high note, what better chance to win than with the Vikings?
Yeah, but would the Vikings even be interested?
How could you not be, dude? Like that's risky as hell, dude. But I'm just saying that's risky as hell, dude. Now with Daniel Jones now gone, to put that team that's that close to being a Super Bowl champion in JJ McCarthy's hands, that's bold, dude. That's risky as hell.
But every quarterback that KOC is involved with, just they do well, and this is the guy. Right? Think about all the different quarterbacks that we've seen: Nick Mullins, Kirk Cousins,
It's true.
Darnold, Josh Dobbs. Even like every Viking quarterback looks better, and McCarthy is the actual. He's the only one that he's been handpicked by Kevin O'Connell. They actually traded up to go get him, and they took him over Bo Nix. So, I think there's enough belief. Like Minnesota, like they are a team that really feels like their process is transparent. They know exactly who they want. Like their evaluation process is really, really good. And they're making all these other moves, right? With Jonathan Allen. I think they signed Hargrave as well at D tackle.
Yep.
So I don't know. I mean, Minnesota, you just haven't made. How much is Rodgers going to ask for? I don't see him signing on for like 10 mil a season in Minnesota. Is Minnesota going to be like, all right, we're going to hand out 25 mil or whatever it is?
I would love to see Rodgers dealing with Pickens and Metcalf with all the mood swings they have. That would be outstanding, man. They'd be fighting all the time.
But you could also argue too, if you're Pittsburgh, you can. So let me take you back to the report that came out before free agency, right? With Justin Fields. What was Fields, or assuming that the report was true here, one of the concerns was he feels like maybe Pittsburgh would select a quarterback early in the draft. Would it be the worst thing in the world if Pittsburgh signs Russ to a 1-year deal, can reunite him with DK? Russ is a good teammate, and they select Jackson Dart, or Sanders falls to them at 21. Tyler Shuck, whatever, in round 2. Maybe that's the plan that Pittsburgh, could deploy. So I don't know. It's going to be pretty interesting, man.
Especially for the Giants, man, because the Giants are in deep trouble. They are so freaking desperate. If they don't get their guy, they've got to trade up. They've got to move up to get their guy because they're never. I mean, they're fighting for their jobs right now. So.
Well, one interesting name too that still we haven't even talked about. We were talking about him a lot before free agency was Kirk Cousins. He's not even released yet. So, I don't know. Like, weirdly enough, Kirk Cousins, if he were to hit the market today, he would be like, in my opinion, the one that's probably coveted the most.
Yeah. Then he goes to the Browns.
Yeah, very well could. But then if he goes to the Browns, along with them having Kenny Pickett, I think the Giants probably wouldn't feel pressured into trading up unless they feel like Tennessee is going to go with Cam Ward at 1.
Yeah.
Because they know Cleveland's not going to, trade for Pickett, sign Cousins, and draft Cam Ward, and just extend Myles Garrett. You kind of feel like they're just say, hey, let's just take the best win now type of player at 2.
Yeah, no, it's
Cousins. I don't know.
This is so like tomorrow's gonna be wild. It's gonna all happen tomorrow. It's gonna be wild to see how it all plays out. So, is there anything we didn't cover? We covered all the picks. We covered all the signings, all the holes that we still have. And I guess at this point, we're just waiting to see what the Jets do. Quiet day for them. I don't think Muji's sleeping. I think they're very calculated. They probably have a value. I think he hasn't been cheap. I think they spent wisely. I don't think any of the contracts are like, oh my God, that's a terrible overpay. I think you can question Stevens a little bit. But other than that, there's nothing where you're like, all right, I don't agree with this. The value, like even the Justin Fields value, I don't mind it. It didn't bother me at all.
Yeah, I mean, again, bro, like end of the day, young quarterback with upside, who's flashed, who's one of the best running quarterbacks in football,
and going to start,
and he's going to start. Yeah. And what are starting quarterbacks getting paid these days? Like, bro, Gardner Minshew signed a like 2-year, $25 million deal with the Raiders last offseason. Yeah. Like, yeah, and that's just for like a veteran stopgap that no one actually believed had any potential in becoming a franchise quarterback. So
now, do you think are the Jets going to portray this as a open competition at quarterback? Do you think Aaron Glenn says we love Justin Fields, but he's going to compete with Tyrod Taylor, Jordan Travis, and player to be named in the draft, or they say he's a starter? How do you think they handle that?
I think that's probably what Aaron Glenn will say, but I think internally Fields will be the guy, and everyone will know it'll be Fields, unless he's just horrific at practice. But again, dude, like, why, if that's the case, right? If you're Justin Fields and you're like, okay, Pittsburgh wants me back, the Jets want me. Again, assuming that report's true, I'm concerned about Pittsburgh not committing to me or drafting a quarterback early, or I'm going to be getting benched again. I'm going to go to the Jets to compete with Tyrod Taylor. Like, I feel like I'm only coming to the Jets if I have like a guarantee, like, hey, you're going to be the guy that we build around, at least for this upcoming season or next 2 years.
I'm glad we got this super chat. First of all, thank you. But this signing proved to me that you can't believe all the reports that were out there, because we saw firsthand Javon Kinlaw. We saw it. One of the most frustrating signings of players all last year, between the penalties and everything else. We wanted to bench, we wanted to cut all these things. And he gets the crazy contract by the Commanders. And you're like, how? Like, what could they have possibly seen? Because it's not like he played well before he came here either. There was questions before he came to the Jets. And that contract, dude, blew my mind. I just genuinely did not understand it on any level.
Yeah, I mean, it's got to be the Adam Peters connection in San Fran.
But dude, like
we
saw him last year, dude. Like, that was supposed to be Salah's guy. Like, he's supposed to, I'm Salah, get the most out of him, and he didn't get anything out of him other than penalties.
Well, dude, knowing our luck, he's gonna ball out. He's gonna be great.
Is there anything else? Well, first of all, thank you everybody for joining us. Thank you for all the support in my fundraiser too, man. If you want to donate, the link is in the description. Definitely appreciate it. Over $3,000 now, which is awesome. Got another month to go. And then next week we'll be on Ian's channel, which everybody knows Ian by now, Jet Central. Is there anything else we didn't cover?
Evan Ingram.
I wouldn't hate it. I'm desperate, dude. I'm really desperate. I wouldn't hate it.
It's interesting. Visited Denver. And with Juwan Johnson now in New Orleans, I think Evan Ingram maybe to Denver makes more sense. And I think he was actually in Denver yesterday visiting the team. And if that, takes place, I could very well see Tyler Warren being the pick at 7.
I'm curious to see what Tyler Conklin gets, man. I'm curious to see what kind of money he gets, because he's gonna be one of the top guys available right now. So,
I mean, I'd probably say so. I don't know who makes the most sense for him though.
Oh yeah, so 2 more things before I let Ian go. Tomorrow night on Jet Afterburners, we're doing a special mental health show, and also celebrating our veterans too. Veterans gonna be on. What did you think about Javon Holland going to the Giants?
I like the move. They actually signed Paulson Adebo too, which is another guy who I liked. But yeah, the Giants had money to spend, I think Javon Holland's a really good player. I'm a little bit intrigued on why the Giants let McKinney go last year.
Yeah,
to Green Bay, and he takes his game to a whole nother level, picking off passes left and right, to then just come back this year to pay a player to put in that same position. Like, just go pay your homegrown player who is arguably better, but kind of strange. It's almost like a reactionary type of signing to me, but bottom, like black and white, he's still a good player added to the Giants defense.
Yeah, Giants spent a lot of money. Patriots spent a lot of money. There's some, and Vikings did too. Vikings beefed up their lines. It's just, free agency is just crazy, man. And the Jets are just chugging along nice and slowly but surely trying to find their players. So thank you guys for joining us. We definitely appreciate it. Next week, 7 o'clock, his channel. We appreciate all the support, all the feedback, all the follows, everything. It's awesome. And we'll talk to you guys next week.